maps, diagrams, highlighted expressions, all these things we need to guess or predict what might be the text will be on, what ideas the text will contain. All these things should be thought over before we start our reading. All the strategies I talked till now are the strategies that we need to employ prior to reading. That means, before we start reading, we need to do all these things, so that we will be very effective in our reading process. Then comes solving problems. Many of us think that it will be really tough for reading, because we have so many problems in understanding a particular text. Yes, either it is an efficient reader or a simple basic reader, everybody will have so many problems in reading comprehension. But we should not demotivate ourselves. We need to prepare ourselves with so many strategies that are available, so that we will be able to read effectively and come with flying colors in our career. So, there are some strategies that I have shown you, I have displayed on screen, and these are the strategies which will be helping you in making yourself better in reading. First one is reading. When you do not understand something, we generally reread by slowing our speed. So, we tend to focus on that particular sentence that we did not understand, and we read it slowly, so that we will be able to understand, and everybody will do that, and there is no shame in doing so, because we are all trying to learn reading. So, it would be better if you do not understand to read it again, so that you will be able to understand it. The next strategy is breaking complex sentence into different parts. For example, if your sentence is so complex and has so many clauses, let us understand clause by clause by breaking that particular sentence into different parts, maybe 3 or 4 parts, so that you will be able to understand each part individually. Then you need to combine entire all those parts into a coherent sentence, and you will be able to understand the meaning of that particular sentence. Another one is guessing meaning from the context or grammatical category or root analysis. The most familiar problem that we have in reading is we do not know the words or the meanings of many words. Nobody will have an understanding of all those English words that we have. So, it will be really tough for us to to keep those words of English in our mind. So, it would be better to employ strategies like guessing meaning from the context, or by establishing grammatical category, or by root analysis. For example, if you do not understand a particular word in a particular text, try to read the resources that we have nearby. For example, the sentence that goes before and the sentence which goes after that particular word. And if you do not understand, if you read the entire surrounding text once again, it will make a bit sense, so that you will be able to understand that particular word. The next one is grammatical category. How do we get meaning by establishing grammatical category? For example, there are so many parts of there are 8 parts of speech in English. If you are able to identify a particular word belongs to a particular category, for example, verb, it is going to talk about an action, it is going to talk about a work, it is going to talk about a state. So, even if you do not understand that particular word completely, you will understand that that particular word refers to an action, or that particular word refers to a work, or that particular word refers to a state, or for example, an adjective. Generally, we use adjectives to describe the quality of something. So, if you are able to establish that it is an adjective, you can identify that it is going to talk about a quality of that particular item, particular subject. So, if you are able to establish grammatical categories or parts of speech of that particular unfamiliar word, you will try to guess at least the basic understanding of that particular word. So, we should equip ourselves to know the grammatical categories of different words and what are the endings of different nouns, different adjectives, different adverbs. We need to do all these things so that we will be better equipped to understand the meaning of an unfamiliar word. Another strategy that we can employ is root analysis. There are many English words which are derived from different languages. So, if we have an understanding of that particular roots, we will be able to guess the meaning of those words. For example, CIDE, if a word ends with CIDE, it is going to talk about something to do with death. For example, infecticide, infect means all of you know. So, infecticide, and for example, matricide, MATRI, matri is something which refers to mother. So, side is something which refers to death. So, matricide is something to do with the death of mother. Such kind of things are there in English, and we need to understand those roots so that we will be able to guess or infer the meaning of unfamiliar words. So, it will be easy for us to understand if we are able to have an understanding of all the roots that we have in English. The next one is making use of transition words. For example, words such as therefore, because, but, however, notwithstanding, these are all the words that we call transition words. If we have an understanding of why we are using these words, you will be able to understand the relationship among different ideas. For example, therefore, when we talk about therefore, it is talking about some kind of effect or result. When we use but, it is going to talk about contrast. When we use however, it is going to talk about difference. In the same way, we have plenty of transition words. We need to have an understanding of all these words, so that it will be very easy to understand and establish association between sentences, association between words. The next one is referring to a dictionary. Most of us do this kind of thing, though dictionaries are not always available. For example, when you write an examination, competitive examination, you are not supposed to use dictionary. So, how are you going to address that issue? So, since dictionary is not available everywhere, we need to depend on guessing meaning from the context or establishing grammatical category, or by doing root analysis, such kind of things, or by analyzing transition words. We need to depend less on the dictionary, so that we will be able to use our mind and the knowledge that we have in order to guess the meaning of that particular word. The next one is asking teachers or classmates. We need to ask either teacher or classmates to solve that particular problem. For example, if you do not understand a sentence, or if you do not know the meaning of a particular word, we will ask someone else. I mean, you ask your teacher or classmates who are sitting next to you, so that you will get an understanding of that particular word or sentence. The next one is learning to ignore difficult words. It is an important strategy, because if we are worried about the words that we do not know in a particular text, we will tend to think that we do not know anything about that particular text. So, we have to have a positive attitude that even if you do not understand 10% of words of a particular text, you will get an overall idea of that particular text. So, it is not necessary that we need to know the meaning of all those words that we have in a particular text. So, if you do not understand meaning of, for example, 5% words or 5 words or 10% words, let us not worry too much about that, because we are in the process of learning, we are in the process of developing our reading skills or language skills. And if you do not worry about that, you will feel confident, and if you worry too much about reading, I mean knowing the meaning of each and every particular word that you do not know, it will take so much time to develop your reading skills and even to complete that particular task. So, let us not worry too much about not knowing the meaning of all those words, and sometimes you need to ignore, you need to leave that, so that you will be going through your reading text as fast as you can. So, we need to read as fast as we can, so that we will focus on that particular aspect. For example, when you are reading to complete some comprehension questions, you need not understand all those words, that we have in that particular text. You can leave some of those words. So, it is always better to leave some of the words and not to worry too much about the words that we are unfamiliar with. So, these are the solving problems, strategies to solve problems that we face while comprehending a text. The next one, and the very significant strategy in effective reading, is responding actions. Many of us do not do this. There is a person who says, never read a book without a pen or pencil in your hand. It is not an exaggeration, it is really true. If you do not have either a pen or a marker or a pencil in your hand, never read a book, the person suggests. Because if you have a pen, if you have a pencil, or if you have a marker, you tend to write or do something with the particular pen or pencil on that particular text. So, you will have a lot of summary notes or some kind of images, some kind of tables, all such kind of things when you read. If you do such kind of things, all that information that you wrote and all the information that you read will be definitely there in your mind for a long time. So, it will be better if you read having a pen or pencil or a marker in your hand. So, we need to follow the suggestion by a great person, never read a book without a pen or pencil you have in your hand. So, always have a pencil or something, so that you will be able to mark or prepare summary or do something else with that particular text. So, there are actions that I have listed on the screen, and please take a look at all those things and do those things. For example, taking notes. It will be very important when we prepare for examinations. You prepare for examination by taking notes. So, you will take notes, all of the information that you have, important information, and you keep that in your notes, and you keep that in your memory as well, and you will reproduce that in your examinations. So, we need to take notes when we read a textbook or when we read a particular reference book, so that it will be better for us to remember the information that contains. Next one is highlighting key information or summary sentences. For example, in each and every paragraph, sometimes we find a summary statement of that particular or concluding sentence of that particular paragraph. So, we need to highlight that. If we highlight or underline that particular statement, it will be very easy for us to remember. So, when we want to read it again, you need not read the entire paragraph once again. If you read that particular highlighted sentence, it will tell you what the entire paragraph talks about. So, it will be better if you are able to identify and locate that particular summary sentence or concluding sentence, which gives the details of the entire paragraph, so that it will be easy for you to refer the notes or the particular text again when you want to refer it. So, we always need to try to highlight by underlining, by bubbling, by circling, by highlighting, by doing whatever you like. So, it will always be better if you do such kind of things, so that it will be very easy for you to understand and keep that information in your memory. The next one is tabulating information. For example, when you have different ideas, for example, comparison of two things. If you have comparison of two things, you can have a tabulation. For example, 3 columns can be maintained. First column will be meant for the common idea for both qualities, and the second column will be for something, and the third column will be for something. For example, the similarities between tiger and lion. When you want to talk about similarities between lion and tiger, you have first column which will be common. For example, size. What is the size of a tiger and what is the size of lion? Then you will talk about the power. What is the size, what is the power of tiger and what is the power of lion? Then you will go for weight. For example, what might be the weight of a tiger, what might be the weight of a lion. If you are able to organize the entire information in a tabular form, it will be very easy for you to refer that and read before, for example, an examination, so that it will be very easy and it will save lot of your time. Time is very precious, as either students or an academic or someone. So, we need to save our time by creating mind maps of such kind. For example, tabulating information which will be appropriate to tabulate. For example, all that information cannot be tabulated. What we can tabulate, we need to tabulate. The next one is commenting. For example, when you read something on the right or on the left, you will have some space. So, you can write with your pencil or in ink, so that you will tend to write the summary statement of that particular paragraph in your comments. If you write the comment that you have in your mind, that means you understood the particular paragraph completely and you are writing the comment. And if you read that particular comment about the paragraph, you need not read the entire paragraph again. So, we need to always write the comments that we get when we read. Do not think that textbook will be spoiled if you write something, or if you comment something, or if you underline something. All the effective readers will be using their pens or pencils to what you think might be spoiling, but it is not spoiling, it is trying to develop their reading skills. So, if you want to become an effective reader, make sure that you will have a pen or a pencil in your hand and do all these things, so that it will be better for you to remember the information or read better. The next one is drawing images. For example, when you are given a description of a particular thing, you can draw an image of that particular information, if it is possible to draw an image. So, if you draw an image, you need not read the entire paragraph again when you want to prepare for examinations. If you read that particular diagram, it will be very easy for you to complete that, comprehending that particular text. For example, so many science experiments will have a kind of a diagram which will help you to remember the information of that particular process. So, you need to create yourself what kind of diagrams will be, what kind of images will be better if you read a particular kind of information. So, we need to create images on our own, so that it will be easy for us to understand that particular information and keep that in memory. The next one is summarizing or paraphrasing. Even at the end of every page, you will have some space. So, either you comment on the left or right, or you write a summary statement or paraphrase of that particular paragraph or page towards the end of that particular page. It will be easy for you to recall this particular statement, and if you are able to do that, you are going to save a lot of time. So, try to summarize or paraphrase the information that you have in a page. The next one is listing down unfamiliar words. When we read a particular text, we need to list down the words that we are unfamiliar with. If you do so, you can have some time, so that you will think of that and you can refer to your dictionary and do that. If you are able to guess the meaning of those particular unfamiliar words, you write the meaning of those unfamiliar words next to them or somewhere in the page, and you try to cross check whether the guessed meaning, the meaning that you guessed, is right in that particular context, or is it wrong. If it is right, why do you think it is right, and if it is wrong, why do you think it is wrong, why did you go wrong, you need to analyze, so that you will become a better person in guessing. So, these are the responding actions that we need to employ when we want to become an effective reader. So, my dear friends, make sure that you will do all these important responding actions, so that you will become an effective reader. The next one is think and feel. When we watch a movie, we feel, we laugh, we cry, we do dishum dishum, we do kind of dancing, patting fingers, all these things. But when we read, why do not we do? That is a big question that we need to answer. Yes, we need to do all these things, so that we will also enjoy the information that contains. So, we need to do all these things, so that it will be very enjoyable process of reading. For example, imagining situations. For example, when you are reading something of a narrative kind of thing, you need to imagine the situation. For example, a writer says like this, a listener, as a listener you should listen to this very keenly. There is a deep dark forest, there is a boy sleeping in that dark forest. When I said these two sentences, you might have visualized the dark forest and the boy sleeping in that particular dark forest. So, it will be very easy for you. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please speak.
Hello, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. Please tell me what is your question.
Sir, is it better to choose our degree or BTech path, sir? We are from MPC students.
You are from MPC students, okay?
Yes, sir. Is it better to choose a BTech or a degree, sir?
Okay, is it better to choose either BTech or degree? Once again, it depends on your choice. For example, if you want to settle yourself in a professional course, you can go for BTech, but if you have different aspirations, like if you want to become a scientist, you can go for either opting physics or chemistry, which will be the basic course in your degree. Or if you want to go for professional education as such, you can go for BTech.
Okay, sir.
Are you satisfied with the answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Satisfied, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. So, we are talking about think and feel. We need to imagine the situations that we are reading. If we are able to reimagine those situations, it will be very easy for you to remember those situations. The next one is visualizing or creating mental images. For example, you might haven't seen a glass of blood, right? But when I say a glass of blood, you can imagine the glass and the red color of blood. So, we need to try to create such kind of images, so that it will be easy for you to remember. So, for example, this, if you are able to listen to me carefully and keenly, you will try to remember the example like a glass of blood, because you might haven't seen such kind of thing, because it is something which is different. So, when you create a kind of mental image in your mind, whatever you are reading, it will be very easy for you to remember that. I am sure many of you will remember the glass of blood example for a long time. Next one is associating. When we read something, as I told you in the beginning itself, we need to associate what we know with what we are reading. For example, when you read for some kind of information, for example, information on tigers, you can think of the information that you have in your mind, something that you read in your zoology or biology text, or something that you read in the news. You should be able to associate the information that you have in the mind with the information that you have in the text. The next one is drawing unstated conclusions. We need to create our own conclusion based on the text. Some authors will leave a lot of space for you to generate conclusions. So, you need to create conclusions on your own. The next one is anticipating what comes next. When we watch a movie, we always think of, oh, this is going to happen next scene, or this is going to happen after the interval, after the break. So, when we do such kind of things, why don't we do when we read? We need to do such kind of things. What is going to come next should also be pondered over. So, we need to think of those things. The next one is establishing relationships among ideas. We need to establish the relationship between ideas. For example, first paragraph and second paragraph will be related in some way. We need to identify the link between those two paragraphs and develop an association between those, so that it will be very easy for you to link those two ideas, and it will be very easy for you to understand. The next one is analyzing and evaluating the information critically. We need to understand and analyze the information very critically. If we accept everything that is there in the text, it is not very proper. We need to understand whether the information that contains is really true or not, and you need to look at that particular information critically. The next one is feeling happy about success in reading. If you are able to complete a reading task and if you are able to complete a book, you need to say, yes, I completed this. That kind of happiness should come, so that it will motivate automatically you to read more. Such kind of things should be done. Motivating oneself, once again I told you, motivating oneself. We need to motivate ourselves to become better readers, so that we will be happy to read more and more. The last one is checking. We need to check whether the speed of reading is appropriate or not. For example, when you want to scan for specific information, you do not spend a lot of time. So, you will read so fast and you will get that particular information, you leave it out. So, if you read for in-depth knowledge, you will spend a lot of time. So, you need to spend sufficient and appropriate time for reading. The next one is checking predictions and guesses. When you read, I already told you, we need to guess and predict what is going to come in the next. When we read it, we need to check those guesses and predictions, whether they are true or wrong. Checking the relevancy of the content to the purpose. If we are able to establish the purpose, it is fine. If we are not able to meet the expectations of what we established in the beginning, we need to change our direction. So, we need to check whether the purpose is established or not, whether the content that we are reading is relevant to the purpose or not. So, that it will be easy for you to move from that text to another text. Next one is going back and forth to check understanding. We need to establish relationships among ideas, so that it will be very easy to remember. In order to do so, we need to go forth and back, so that you will be able to establish ideas. The next one is getting concentration back. When we read, we may lose concentration. It is very natural for anyone. So, we should not be carried away with such kind of things. We need to get our concentration back. If we are really motivated to read it, to read something, we can get our concentration back. Most of the successful people that we have in our world are trying to check their concentration. If they lose concentration, definitely they would come back to the task and focus on the task. The next one is managing disturbances and difficulties. When we read, some of our friends may come and they may ask, hey, let us go for a movie. So, if you have such kind of disturbances, how do we address such kind of movies? It is always better if you have a prepared plan for such kind of things. So, we need to manage the disturbances that we have and the difficulties that we have, so that it will be easy for us to understand and remember the information, and if we are able to focus on the task, it will be very, very important, so that you will become an effective reader. These are all the strategies which I told you are only like tools for you to develop effective reading. It is not that if you keep those strategies in your mind, you will become an effective reader. It is not so. You need to do all these strategies, so that you will be able to execute or employ or develop these strategies in your own reading, and it will be very easy for you to be an effective reader. So, make sure that you will try to utilize these strategies in your reading and become an effective reader. I wish you all a happy reading. Thank you for listening.